Are you a business owner? Let me know. I want to connect with you. If you've got gear, if you've got merchandise, uh, business services, products, events, heck, even a hat, shirts, let me know. Let's advertise your business right here on this podcast. Let me help you reach your goals. Let's put a marketing plan together and develop a strategy to take your business to the next level. Be like Mr. Dan Francis, our great friends out of Canyon City, Colorado. He's got a tremendous brand. You can check his brand out online at mtnmn.com. Really stands for Mountain Man. His name's Dan, Mountain Man Dan. He's got something good going on. He's a poet, didn't know it. mtnmn.com. And I even have my own Mountain Man hat. Check that out. MM with the mountains, Rocky Mountains. It's got his little mtnmn.com hat. I mean, dude, come on. You can't get a better hat. It's a trucker style hat. He's got great shirts, he's got great products. Again, go check him out online today, mtnmn.com. This guy is also one of the executives on the Military Rodeo Cowboy Association board, who's also doing great things in the military and veteran community across the country. And it's getting into rodeo season, folks. So it's time to get your hat, get your shirt, get your gear, get on out and support the rodeo. Get on out and support Mountain Man Dan and his products. Folks, we have a very special guest joining us on today's program. Now, I'm going to just start with this. Call sign Rowdy 7, right? You're like, whoa, what's Rowdy 7? Well, I'll tell you what it is. Now, this is a guy, his name is Darrell Utt. He is a retired Master Sergeant, U.S. Army Special Forces, Green Beret. I mean, dude, this guy is cream of the crop, right? This guy started off his life, humble beginnings in West Virginia, and has worked his way all the way up the ladder of success while giving a life of selfless service, and is now working at the National Medal of Honor Museum Foundation as their Senior Vice President of Operations. And with that, I am honored to be joined by Mr. Darrell Utt. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Brian. Thanks for that great intro. Say when. Let's do this.
Say, let's go. Come on.
Let's go. Bring the heat.
Bring it. You know, there's not too many guys you could sit down with that has the resume. I mean, you know, I've looked at your resume for probably well over a month now. I know we've, been talking for quite some time. And it's truly impressive what you have accomplished in your life. Like you like to say, I grew up, I had some humble beginnings in West Virginia, and you overcame great odds, by hard work and sacrifice, and working your way all the way up to earning that covenant Green Beret and that Ranger tab. Describe what it was like growing up as a kid in West Virginia.
Well, like you said, humble beginnings, just a lot of hard work, a lot of effort, and, was lucky, was involved with sports and was around some great people and was encouraged to go out there and look for bigger and better things. And I think that helped propel me and eventually lead me to a life of service. So yeah, definitely blessed to come from those humble beginnings. Little rough, but very thankful now.
Now, were you in the backwoods of West Virginia? You got family that were coal miners? Paint me a picture.
Yeah. Sure. So I was probably considered more of a city guy from West Virginia. Grew up in a small town, Huntington, West Virginia, which is where Marshall University, if you know the movie We Are Marshall with Matthew McConaughey, were infamously known for the Marshall plane crash, which was before I was born. But that's how most people know, if it's like, oh, Huntington, it's like, I don't know, what that is. But yeah, Huntington, West Virginia, it's probably a town of 50, 60,000 people. But, it's in the southwest part of the state, adjacent to Ohio and Kentucky. So when you really think probably more West Virginia and mountains and whitewater rafting, you're talking up in the mountains, the northeast part of the state. So yeah, I was probably, I wasn't barefoot running around, coal mines and things like that, but definitely had some people in my family that were former coal miners for sure.
Love it. I love that one song. Is it Charlie Daniels? He talks about the West Virginia coal mines and the Rocky Mountains and the Western skies.
That's Hank Williams Jr., my man.
Oh yeah, Hank. Yeah, Hank. I was.
Yeah.
Hey, look,
Yeah, I love some Hank.
Yes, Hank. Oh man, Hank, Charlie. All those guys are my favorites, man.
Oh yeah,
favorites.
Oh yeah, I grew up listening to a lot of Hank. Still listen to some Hank, but I'm a huge George Strait fan too. I don't know how you feel about George, man, but that guy is definitely the king of country, man.
Yeah, George is great. I'm a big Chris Ledoux fan too. I love that old rock, kind of like what Mountain Man Dan does, right?
Yeah, that's a cool. I had my eye on that hat.
Yeah, that's Chris Ledoux stuff right there, man. That's the Rocky Mountain West. That's the old West, the old Western tradition, the heritage that we need to keep alive in this country. The Wild West, the Cowboys. That's why my page, say when, old
Say
tombstone, quotes and stuff like that. It's just, it's fun, right? It's very engaging.
Yeah, it is. Engaging. Yeah, when we first started talking, we had a lot of fun and going back and forth and, the say when, really, really enjoyed that. That was good stuff, man.
Yeah, I put that there for a reason because people have been reaching out a lot. And, this podcast has grown by leaps and bounds, just since when I started it in August of last year. And, you're episode 147. I just started this thing in August. And so I made it say when by Today with Tally podcast because people have been saying, hey, can I come on your show? And I say, yeah, sure. Say when. Like, all right, well, I quickly, flip the script and say, okay, well, you want on, you tell me when.
Yeah. So I got to ask you this, Brian. You said you started back in August, just August of 2022, not like August like 3 years ago. You're talking August 2022. Is that right?
Oh yeah. I'm obsessed with this stuff, man. I love it.
And how many subscribers do you have on Facebook now that are probably going to be tuning in, listening to this podcast tonight when it goes live? Is that right?
Yeah. It'll be on at 6 p.m.
Okay. How many subscribers do you have?
Well, I think I have about 59,000 on Facebook.
Wow. That's amazing. Since August.
Yeah. I'm just building it up, obviously. But, I do really good with the Spotify. I have a lot of subscribers over there. We've just had 1,000 plays last week. iHeartRadio, we're now on Amazon, Google Podcasts. I just started a YouTube page. I'm trying to build that up. So if you guys are listening to this, go subscribe to the YouTube page, which is the Today with Tally podcast. All my podcasts are all audio visual like this, so it'll definitely help people follow on with the guests and what they have to offer and the testimony that they could share with us. Whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether it's ugly, if you will. We kind of talk about it all here on this show, and that's what it's all about. But my mission and my goal is to always pull out that value from my guests to share it with the people that are listening and watching, because we all have value that could be added, and it's up to me to pull it out and to get it shared. And that's exactly what we're going to do with you today. Darrell Utt, the man out of West Virginia who likes to use the word city with West Virginia. Never heard that before, but hey, there's a new time for everything, right? So what led you into the U.S. Army?
Well, like I said, came from humble beginnings. So there wasn't a whole lot of opportunity for me in West Virginia. Wasn't a great student, was a decent athlete. But, my family didn't have the money for college. So military service was almost like, my main outlet out of West Virginia. And luckily, and I've talked about this on previous podcasts and things like that, but luckily I had a great football coach, had solid parents as well that gave me good advice. But I saw the journey to the military as a way, that I could do something with myself and serve my country. And, after high school, but all the way back in 1990, um, after high school, joined the military a couple months later. And, man, 26 and a half years later,
Mm.
I finished up, but it was a great journey, man. I wouldn't trade it for anything. Just, really feel blessed to have that opportunity to serve. And, those feelings, Brian, you served as well. And I don't know how it was for you, like when you first came in, but, like for me, I was an 18-year-old kid. I was young. I didn't really know anything. But after, so many years, it really, like, the meaning of service and patriotism and what you're doing for your country, like it just, um, it really resonates more and more and more. So I was very proud to go through that journey for sure.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. What was your family like growing up?
Had a good family, solid family. I mean, had an older brother, older sister, and I was in every sport. Played football, basketball, baseball. Um, was probably the best at football. Also, grew up hunting, fishing, and trapping with my dad. Um, and that was part of it, yes, was recreation and having fun and doing what people from West Virginia do. But the trapping was a source of income for us.
Mm.
That helped us financially, especially, Christmas and things like that. I mean, selling the pelts, things like that. I mean, it was a financial business decision.
Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So what we primarily trapped was muskrats, which is basically a rat that swims in the creeks and the rivers. And I would go out with my dad, and I would be his like little assistant, and we would set these traps, and then we would go back later and check the traps, and if we had a muskrat, then we would collect those muskrats up. We'd take them home. We'd end up skinning them and drying out the pelts. And then once we had a good collection of pelts, we would go to, I guess, like a fur dealer. I don't know exactly what they're called nowadays, but then we would sell the pelt. Don't even really remember how much those pelts were going for, but I do know that some years we did really, really well. Other years, it's decent, but I enjoyed it. I ate it up. I thought it was the
Hmm.
greatest thing, to be involved in sports, pretty much my whole, all the way up until I was 18. And then to be able to do some hunting, fishing, and trapping, man, I thought I was living the American dream.
Mm. Yeah, you have a very unique story because you're very lucky. It sounds like you had both your parents. The majority of the people that I have on my podcast, the first thing I ask them, like, hey, what was, your childhood like? And the first thing they say is, well, I didn't have a dad growing up.
Yeah,
And
I was definitely lucky in that regard,
yeah,
and I think that's super important, and that would come full circle for me later on in my life.
yeah.
I would have that opportunity. I don't know if we'll have time to get into it for this episode, but the example that my dad set for me, I was able to continue, basically his legacy. When the time came for me to step up and be a single dad later on, I did. And I'm proud of that decision. One of the best decisions I made, even though I was toward the end of my career. But yeah, you're right, man. That's super important. And
Hmm.
I'm happy for I'm proud of the things that my dad taught me. On the sports side, the life side, hunting, fishing, trapping side. A lot of those skills I would use later on. Definitely I would use some of those skills later on. And I feel like my mom, like, and this might sound a little weird, but my mom really, she's the one that fine-tuned my mental toughness, because she was a tough lady. And of course, both my parents are passed now, but and they did get divorced like my senior year of high school, but I was fortunate to have them for most of my childhood. And I learned great lessons from both of them. Like my top three things that I talk about, like top three things for success, It's definitely from my mom and dad. Number one, work hard. Number two, be humble. Number three, don't quit. I mean, it's simple. It's so simplistic, right, Brian? I mean, work hard, be humble, don't quit. Those are simple, simple, simple things. But I think it's a valuable lesson. I was lucky to learn it early on. Um, and I still practice that to this day.
Beautiful, man. That's awesome. And um, having that father role and having that mother role in your life, it's kind of like they give 50-50, right? Like I'm going to teach you how to be a man. Okay. And then that's your dad. And that's stuff that you can take into the service with you and through boot camp. A lot of the folks I went to boot camp with, you could tell that who had their fathers, in their life, they were better riflemen. They were, better at, using a compass, when you're out on patrols and stuff like that. But there's a lot of folks that join the military who never really had that father figure in their life. And so they joined looking for that father, if you will, that missing piece that they had growing up to teach them, how to be a man, and we're living in a time in a day and age where, there's not a lot of fathers present, unfortunately, in the lives of their children, which is why I think I'm such a great dad. I'm going to give myself credit for that. I've been married 25 years, got 4 beautiful kids. We've done tremendous jobs with them all. They all have their special talents, and that's very important to me, because that's something I didn't have growing up. So it's definitely something I want to get to them.
Well, I can tell, Brian, that you're a great dad because over your right shoulder there, you got some kind of great dad card or award. I was admiring it. The one down lower than that is something.
I've got drawings and all my kids. Yeah, I love everything that they do for me, man. They're very special, very unique, good, great kids. Salt of the earth. But
yeah, I'm very proud of my son and daughter. Both graduated college from Appalachian State and Boone, North Carolina. The connection there was when I was stationed at Fort Bragg. So they both graduated college. After college, my son enlisted in the United States Army, and he's serving, and he's doing great. He's crushing it. My daughter's getting ready to get married in August, so I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully, I can keep it together and not be a big mess, but because you have daughters, right, Brian?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got 2.
Yeah, daughters change you, man. I'm sure you probably went through that. Daughters, like for my son, it was easy for me to lay the hammer down and toughen him up and all of those things, but having a daughter totally changes you, man. It totally changes you. So
absolutely, yeah.
I'm hoping I can keep it together.
I got bookends. I got girl, boy, girl, and being a Marine, you got to keep it simple, right? So I got building blocks on my arm here.
Nice.
And it's A, B, C, and D, and those are my kids in order: Alana, Brady, Colton, and Delaney. Right? So A, B, C, D. Right? I
love it.
Pretty easy, so I'll never forget their names.
I love it. That's awesome.
Anyways, I want to get into Darrell Utt. I want to get into your service. I want to dig into some of the notables, about you. Again, Green Beret, a very distinguished career. You led teams in combat, and I know you served a lot. You served, for 20 years or over 20 years in the Army, but just a few of the notables here. Now, Darrell, guys, was awarded the Bronze Star Medal with Valor for heroic actions and leadership during combat operations in Baghdad, Iraq in 2006. Is there anything you could share with our audience today about that certain incident there, or perhaps give us, a little glimpse of what it was like in combat operations in 2006 in Baghdad?
Yeah, so actually, Brian, I just celebrated on the 17th of April was my 17th anniversary of my Alive Day in Baghdad, Iraq. So 17 April 2006.
Whoa, 17 April. It's the 20. So this is just a couple days ago.
Just a couple days ago, exactly.
Oh, well, happy alive birthday!
Thank you, thank you. I'm very, very appreciative to still be here. So yeah, so you mentioned the Bronze Star Medal with Valor. That was awarded for actions on 17 April 2006, and which is my Alive Day. And an Alive Day is a day that you know, veterans, first responders, people that have been in dangerous, life-threatening situations is typically a day, at least for me, is a day that I reach out to all my buddies that I serve with, the guys on my Operational Detachment Alpha, my ODA. I reach out to them and say, hey, man, appreciate you guys. It was an honor serving in combat with you guys. And there's no other group of men that I would have rather been with. And thank you for everything, because I wouldn't be here if it weren't for you. And a day that I reflect and I'm just thankful for. So in a really quick nutshell, I'll kind of break it down for you. So I was on my third deployment to Iraq in 2006. I was in Baghdad, and it was my first trip as a team sergeant. So I was the senior enlisted member of a special forces team. I was leading an ODA in combat. We were in Baghdad. We were actually in a suburb of Baghdad. It was Adamiyah. So it was the last Sunni stronghold in Baghdad, because after Saddam was captured and removed from power, all the Shias started moving into Baghdad, because he had a lot of favoritism toward Sunnis, because he was a Sunni. So anyway, it was a very, very dangerous, violent time period in Iraq. I think it was the most dangerous time period for Iraqi civilians. 2006, there were more Iraqi civilians killed than any other time in Iraq, even Fallujah, Ramadi years. I think it was the third deadliest time for American soldiers. So my team, we were there from January to August of 2006. And, as soon as we got there, we kind of got our feet underneath of us. And then 22 February 2006 hits, and it basically ignites an Iraqi civil war, because Sunnis had bombed one of the large Shia mosques in Samarra. So things were already violent, out of control, deadly, and then it really got amped up even more. So that's to kind of give the listeners out there a little context to kind of what we were dealing with January, February, March, and then it rolls into April 17th, 2006. Our partner force, we were adjacent to a unit from the 101st Airborne out of Fort Campbell, Kentucky. And we woke up on April 17th, all hell breaking loose, which was somewhat typical for us. And, we had reached out to our counterparts from the 101st and said, hey, we know all hell's breaking loose. You guys need anything? And they said, no, we're good. So we went about our business, and we were getting ready to go back to Baghdad International Airport. We made a quick stop in the green zone at the end, right around the embassy area where our company headquarters was. And then we got a call from our brothers at the 101st, and they said, hey, man, if you're close, we do need you. We need support. And, we reacted to that. It was a troops in contact. I think by this point, they'd been under fire. They've been, troops in contact for almost 5 hours. So it's, it's daylight, urban, Baghdad. We had terrible weather that day. It was very overcast, so there was no air support, which is why I think this fight was the way it was. But we were in 2 vehicles, Brian. We had 2 gun trucks. We had a 240 machine gun on my truck, and then we had a 50 cal on the trail vehicle. But we weren't very big, man. We were a small team, small package. We definitely fought above our weight, though. But I had 6 Green Berets with me, 3 in each vehicle. And then I had an interpreter that sat right behind me in my vehicle. So we had 7 people, 6 Green Berets, and 1 interpreter. And we responded to this troops in contact on April 17, 2006. We got out there. I think we fought for probably about 2 hours. It was just a street fight. just, total street fight. Here we are, let's do this thing. And Adamia, up to this point, we had received a lot of harassment fire. They would shoot and they'd kind of run away, or they'd melt back into the population or their residents or whatever. This time, April 17th, they were ready to fight. And we welcomed them to the fight. We wanted to fight as well. It was kind of like one of those things, like you say, like, hey, just say when. And we answered the bell, and we got out there and we just started, fighting and throwing some lead down range. And it was, it was an intense day. It was a violent day. It was close and personal, the ranges that we were engaging threats. And, it was one of those urban environments too, Brian, like a 360 environment where, all of the compounds and the houses are, really close together. The streets are smaller, intersections, things like that. I mean, it is a 360 shooting gallery. And I would say really my Alive day came, we were in vehicles and we started maneuvering, against our threats. And at some of the key intersections, they would have obstacles set up. So we had to be very careful with these obstacles, because if we got too close, our vehicles were exposed, and we didn't want to eat an RPG because it would have been catastrophic. So we had to try to, keep the vehicles back a little bit, but we still had to remove these obstacles so we could still keep moving forward and have momentum, because we were doing a lot of damage to the enemy. As long as we could see them and they were willing to throw down, then we could do some damage. But my Alive day basically comes into play. I was the guy that had to, I guess I didn't have to, but I was the guy that got out of the vehicle and removed these obstacles under fire, so our vehicles could keep moving and keep, putting fire down on the enemy and keep, eliminating threats. And I had to do that a couple of times, and it was under fire, and it was like, hornets are everywhere. The rounds are flying by, but just removing those obstacles, just to keep our vehicles going, man, it was a lot. And, I can't, obviously take all the credit for the success of that day, but we had two guys. We had our 240 machine gunner. We had our 50 cal gunner that were in exposed turrets for over 2 hours, and they were under the same type of threat that I was, and they held on, and they fought hard, and we fired thousands of rounds, man. We fired a lot of rounds, and we eliminated a lot of threats. But it was definitely a very violent day. And as a result of that day, I believe our team was one of the most heavily decorated teams in 10th Special Forces Group, which is the group that I came from, based out of Fort Carson, Colorado. We had 3 Bronze Star medals with Valor. We had 3 ARCOMs with Valors, most of them from that incident. But it's a day of reflection. 17 April, man. It was looking back, it was, I have a lot of good memories, but it was definitely a dangerous, violent time.
So you were in a vehicle, right, going down an urban road in this firefight that would last for 2 hours, correct?
Yes.
Now, were you flanked with any other soldiers, or with you strictly with your special operations, your Green Berets, if you will, rolling kind of solo, if you will, just kind of?
Yeah, we were rolling unilateral. It was just us. But we did have the Iraqi army elements out there that the 101st had been working with. That it wasn't our partner force, but it was friendlies. They'd been pinned down for quite a while, and they couldn't really maneuver. And the bad guys were actually maneuvering on them. So they'd kind of just try to hold their ground and maintain what they had.
Mm-hmm.
And then the 101st were there. When we first linked up, we linked up with the Iraqi army. We linked up with the 101st as well on the second go around. The conversation I had with their leadership was like, hey, I just want to make sure I know what I'm dealing with here. And I basically pointed my left hand out and my right hand out. And I was like, what do I have out here? Like, what is in front of me? And it's like, there are no friendlies in front of you. There are no Iraqi army. There's no 101st. These are all bad guys. And it's like, roger that. Like, that's the easiest instructions that I could give my gunners, because it's like, here's your left sector, here's your right sector. If it's a threat, kill it. Mm-hmm. And that's as simple as it was. But when we initially started out, because the 101st was trying to get organized with the Iraqi army, that's pretty tough, dealing, with the Iraqi army and trying to train those guys and try to lead them into combat. So to relieve the pressure from those guys, we drove down a north-south road and we started working these side streets with the 50 cal and the 240 machine gun. We were doing that unilateral and just basically leapfrogging and just eliminating threats. Because it kind of surprised the enemy that we had that flexibility. And one of our things that we always talked about, and we tried to live by this: surprise, speed, violence of action, overwhelming firepower. I mean, we tried to live by that. And I think that kept us alive. We were super aggressive, and that's the way that we fought. And that's how that initial contact for us started, was going up that north-south road, working those side streets. And I think it really confused the enemy, and they didn't know what had hit them. And then by the time that we linked back up with the 101st after working all those side streets, then we started getting ready to maneuver online, Iraqi Army, 101st, Special Forces. And then we started moving up and we started pushing the enemy back. So we definitely had some firepower then. They were definitely on the run.
Describe what it's like all these years later. Now, there's veteran suicide is an extremely hot topic in this country. 20 years of heavy combat. And, especially like you were saying, in urban terrain, you're out there unilaterally. And the problem with urban terrain is you can't see what's coming. Yeah, these guys are on rooftops. They're in windows, second, third deck. You can't see them, but they can see you. And at any moment, you can get a flash, and then your life is over. And I unfortunately have known far too many great men that were in EOD, or they were, riflemen, they were 0311s, and they were killed in action. And I can only imagine what their last second, what their last minute felt like. Because when you're in that type of situation, I can only imagine the adrenaline, your heart's pounding, it's loud, it's violent, you're communicating with your soldiers. What has it done anything to your psyche, if you will, emotionally or mentally, all these years later, after having gone through such experiences, that you don't know if your life's going to be taken at any second as you are going down this urban street in this urban setting, just receiving fire and, fire after fire after fire, and returning the fire, and being in like a movie type set war? Like, what has it done to you?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I appreciate you asking the question, because we do have, we have an epidemic right now that we're dealing with on the veteran side with suicides. I mean, and I don't know the actual numbers. 20 a day to 40. I mean, I don't know what that is, but I know we have an epidemic, and it's a serious problem. But I will say it like this, Brian. It does something to your body when you go from a 0 to 100, and it's just like, whew, you're ramping up, and then you ramp down, and then you ramp up. Well, I think for most people, and I'm not a psychologist or an expert. I'm just giving you my West Virginia, Texas opinion. But when your body ramps up like that repeatedly over and over and over, and you go from 0 to 100, and it's life threatening. You're getting shot at, and they're close, and you're almost getting hit, or, RPGs are exploding, or you just got hit with an IED, or you see a body that gets flown through the air, or you're under attack with rockets or mortars. I mean, all of those things, like those life, like just ramping up from 0 to 100. I would say most people don't experience that. Maybe you could count them on one hand, if they were involved in a robbery or, something like that. I mean, most people, they don't have those. And I'm not smart enough to sit here and tell you and tell the audience that's out there listening what that does to your body, but I know it does something to it because, veterans, there's a lot of special ops veterans, they call it operator syndrome, the TBI, the PTS, and sleep issues, low testosterone. I mean, you could go down the list. There's probably 30 things. And these are tough issues. I would say for me, like what I've really felt as I've gotten older, I just turned 51. I feel like I'm probably a lot more risk adverse these days than I was back then. I mean, back then it was like, hey, we're going to roll and we're here to fight. And we're going to fight. Now I'm probably a little bit more risk averse. And I feel like I still, when I talked to you earlier this morning, Brian, if you could tell, I'm not for sure, but I was on the treadmill and I spend a lot of time on the treadmill. And I think a lot of that, I mean, it makes me feel good. I mean, it's more for my mental well-being, I think, than probably my physical, because, I'm just kind of, walking on the treadmill. I can't run anymore because I got metal in my body, but there are some effects, and I think it's part of the problem. If you're trying to deal with someone that has PTS, or you're trying to deal with someone with TBI, and if you don't have those treatments zeroed in and you're doing the right thing, then we're not really doing those guys and gals a great service. We might even be doing more harm than good. And then when they get out and they don't have that support network that they could go to and reach out to, I mean, dude, we're just losing so many people to these suicides. There has to be something, but without that support network, without their buddies being right there, checking in on them and, hey man, are you good? Are you all right? I think we're basically losing that battle. And I don't know if we were having a conversation about it, or if it was someone else, like it could have been someone else, but it's like, man, we've lost more people over the last 10 to 20 years to suicides than we did in Iraq and Afghanistan. Like, it's not even close. What is happening in our community? So I think that's something that we need to look at, Brian. And I would like to acknowledge you right now and your efforts and all of the attention that you're bringing to these issues, and the people that you're reaching by listening to these podcasts. You're doing, a huge effort for, great service for our community to try to get folks help and to talk about their issues. And for me, I was prescribed trazodone for TBI and all those type of things. And I didn't want to keep taking that. I wanted to try to do something else. And for me personally, the treadmill and exercise and things like that, and staying busy and being active, those personally help me. So I just hope that the listeners out there can try to find something, go to get those resources that are available. And, we talk about courage all the time, and you can talk about courage with Bronze Star medals, with Valors, Silver Stars, Medal of Honor, and all the courage that went into that. Well, guess what? It also takes courage for someone to say, hey man, I need some help. Will you help me? That takes courage, just as much courage as it is when you're outside exposed and you're under fire, or you're dragging your buddy to save his or her life. That takes a lot of courage, but it also takes courage to say, I'm in a bad place, man. Will you please help me? That takes courage.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just not fair. This whole veteran suicide epidemic that we have going on in our country, because these are men and women who answered that call to service when their number was called. This is the best our country has to offer. These are brave and courageous and folks that are willing to sacrifice everything, that have written a blank check payable to the United States government and people of our country. And it seems as if the more you contribute in a positive way, a lot of these days, in times that we're living in, that the more you're punished, and sometimes the less you contribute in this world and country of ours, the more you're rewarded. And I feel at times that we've done a big disservice to a lot of the men and women that we have lost, because perhaps we have not recognized those signs of suicide. And it is becoming overwhelmingly worse every single day. I get so many messages from people that are going through very, very hard times. And, I've got to put myself in that situation to help them through some of their darkest days. Because, at one point in my life, I wasn't in those same shoes. And I didn't really have a Brian Talley to really lean on. I had some other friends, and I had some, but they didn't really understand the stresses and stuff that I was going under, because they had never really lived it before. So when these veterans reach out, I can kind of, understand how they feel. And like how you were saying, going from 0 to 100 creates anxiety. Okay. Anxiety will then branch out into depression. And then when you go from 100 to 0, now you've got this bipolar piece that's starting to work. So you've got veterans that have got extreme anxiety and depression, and then all of a sudden their mental health starts to decline, and they have these great high moments and they have these low moments. It's this bipolar piece again that's, I think, it's coming in, and that could be a contributing factor to how they feel and the problems that they are going through, to feel as if the only way that they can get better is to exit and to leave this world on their own terms. And that's, again, that's a disservice that we have given. And a lot of the times, the sad thing about it is we can't reach those who don't want to be reached. A lot of veterans, they just go off the grid, they go dark, and that's where they want to be. And you really can't find them. You can do everything you can to try to reach out, but if they don't want to be reached, they don't want to be reached. I think this is where podcasts could be coming into those homes. If a veteran could just listen to a podcast, perhaps that could be the life-changing moment that can help him or her get back on their feet, to start to get that 1% better every single day, to get that life back that they were intended to live after an honorable career of service. Now, I want to get into what you're doing now, but before we do, I just want to, again, commend you. Look, as a Special Forces Team Sergeant, your operational detachment Alpha was recognized and awarded the 2006 Larry Thorne Award for Best Operational Detachment in the 10th Special Forces Group. Explain that, if you got 2 minutes on that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, what an honor that was too. And it was totally unexpected. And the story behind this that I want to share and show a little bit of vulnerability here. Mm-hmm. When this rotation started, and we won the 2006 Larry Thorne Award for that rotation in Baghdad from January to August of 2006. That was the bulk of our award. But let me tell you this, just to show you a little bit of vulnerability. I didn't think I was going to probably make it past week 1 or week 2. I mean, we had a rocky start to this rotation, because as soon as you rotate into country and there's another Special Forces team already there, they've been there, so you're replacing them. So there's basically, fresh meat, new meat. Mm-hmm. So we were the fresh Special Forces team that was getting ready for 8-month deployment. And I had some issues on the team that I had to deal with, and I'm not going to go into great detail about what happened, but there was a guy that I basically needed to fire and let go. So the day that I was getting ready to do that, he had just flown into country. So I was flying back to Baghdad International, or I was driving back to Baghdad International Airport to let him know, like, hey, man, you're basically going to do a staff role. You're not going to be operational on a special forces team this rotation. So I was getting ready to have that very hard, difficult conversation, mano mano, with this guy and let him know. And then at the same time, we had these little embassy cell phones back then. My phone's ringing and someone's letting me know, like, hey, man, we're missing a very sensitive piece of communications equipment that had crypto, which there's a lot of implications here. And I heard it initially, like the team that we were replacing, like they were missing a piece of equipment. I was like, oh, that sucks for them. Hope they find it. And it's like, no, Darrell, it's ours. It's our team. And I was like, holy shit, man. So it was pretty significant. I mean, it was significant. That was the start of the rotation where I really thought, like, this could be a fireable offense. You know, I'm getting ready to fire someone, you know, and then we just lost a piece of equipment, which we later recovered, you know, months later, but totally separate side story. But yes, this is the underdog story, because we realized that help wasn't coming. It was, you know, we had to fight our way out of this, and we had to put our big boy pants on and get after it and get busy. And no one was feeling sorry for us. We had a bad start. We had a rocky start. You know, we got punched in the face, and we were all bloodied, but we had to man up, and we did. We manned up, and we had a great rotation, and we had a lot of successful operations. And that's what led us to this Larry Thorney Award. But I wanted to make sure that I gave the listeners and you, Brian, some context, that it wasn't all like roses and we just walked in and we were like the kings, and, you know, everything just fell right into place and we just kicked ass and took names. Like, we had a rocky start, man, and we got punched and we got knocked down, but we got right back up and we kept after it. And I think that's a valuable lesson in life, man. It's not always going to be perfect. You're going to get knocked down, maybe repeatedly, but you got to get your ass back up and keep fighting.
Yeah, no, that's great. No, that comes with the cost. You know, everything in life comes with the cost. Yeah. You know, as if you haven't done enough in your life, you're not done. You're just getting started. I mean, what an honorable career you've had, you know, in the Army as a special forces operator, you know, and again, earning that coveted Green Beret, serving our country in combat, and just having so many neat attributes and honors and awards that you've been given for your leadership over the years. But something happened. February 2022, right? 2022 was a cool year for both of us. The president and CEO of the National Medal of Honor Museum Foundation selected you, Darrell Utt, to be the chief of business operations. And now you have recently been named the senior VP of operations. Now, guys, let me tell you a little bit about the National Medal of Honor Museum, right? This is being built right now up in, I believe is it in Arlington? Just
Arlington,
right there
Texas.
in the Dallas area. Now, guys, this is under construction. It's been under construction for a year now, and these guys are getting ready to open their doors soon. And this is going to be a place that you can go take your family to and really, you know, experience, you know, the past generations of these warfighters, if you will, folks that have left it all on the battlefield and have earned that national or have earned that Medal of Honor, you know, award. And, you know, there's not too many folks that have earned the Medal of Honor. So it's a very distinguished award. Can you describe for our listeners what exactly what you're going to be doing there at the National Medal of Honor Museum?
Yeah, thanks, man. It's a great intro. So it's going to be a 3-pronged project. we're going to obviously, we're going to have the museum, and we're going to have a leadership institute that's going to be co-located in Arlington, Texas. And then we're also going to be building a monument in Washington, D.C. That's probably going to be a little bit behind, maybe 2026, down the road a little bit, right there in the National Mall in Washington, D.C. But for the museum and the institute, we broke ground, like you said, March 25th of 2022. Excuse me. We just hit over a year construction. We're putting a lot of the big steel for the exhibit deck. If you haven't seen the design, please go to our website, www.mohmuseum.org. Look at our building. It's amazing. It's going to be a beautiful facility. If my big head wasn't in the way, you could kind of see it over my shoulder there. You can see the Oculus that's going to be in the center of the exhibit deck and the light that's shining up. So I'll just tell you briefly about that. Wow. So we have these 5 large mega columns that are going to be supporting this steel exhibit deck. That's 200 by 200 by like 34 or 35 feet. I mean, it's going to be huge. But the 5 mega columns that support this floating box represent each of the branches of service that have a Medal of Honor recipient. And I know there's probably listeners that are like, what? Wait a minute. There's not 5 branches of service anymore. There's 6 branches because we got Space Force as of like 3 years ago. But the 5 branches that have a Medal of Honor recipient, the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marine Corps, the Coast Guard, the 5 mega columns are supporting that steel exhibit deck. And then we're going to have that Oculus that I just showed you behind me with the light. That's going to represent, with these big, huge light cannons, that's going to represent our 6th branch, the Space Force. So that's going to be like a beacon of courage and inspiration. And when you tune in to the Texas Rangers baseball game or a Sunday night or Monday night football game with the Dallas Cowboys, you're going to see our museum prominently displayed. But man, we're super excited. We're going to have some great things at the museum, and we're scheduled right now, probably going to have a soft opening January, February of March 2025, and then have our grand opening on March 25th of 2025, which will be National Medal of Honor Day. So it's going to be great, man. We're doing some great things with the exhibit deck. It's not going to be a chronological museum where, you start at the Civil War and you see the first Medal of Honor recipients, and then you walk around, and then you eventually end up at, the global war on terror with Iraq and Afghanistan, and, you end there. But it's going to be more of a biography museum. It's going to be stories of the recipients before they joined, while they served, their actual action, the things that they did after their service, because there's just so much that our recipients have done to help shape our country that I think it's important to know. We're really going to concentrate on those 6 values, Brian, that are inherent in the Medal of Honor, the Medal of Honor recipients: courage, sacrifice, commitment, integrity, citizenship, patriotism. And I think a lot of people would probably agree with me and us that is lacking in our country right now. Some of those values and the character and leadership development and all those things. So I think that's really going to be important. And I just hope we can get a bunch of people interested, and I hope we can get some people that, when they come to the Arlington area, the Dallas-Fort Worth area, I hope they get a chance to come and visit our museum. We'd love to be able to host them and show them a great time.
Yeah, I can't wait for it to open up. When are you guys opening your doors?
March 25th of 2025.
Wow.
So we're just a little bit under 2 years, but we still have a lot of work to do. We got a lot of construction still to go, and we're making a lot of great progress. If you want to do something to help us, we're always looking for friends and partners. we're looking for folks that will donate. You can go to our website. I listed the website. Oh, there it is right there.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that you can do is please follow us on social media. The Medal of Honor Museum is on all the different social media channels. If you'd like, you could follow me. I just now started my other social media channels. I was primarily just on LinkedIn, and I'm like the only person that's named Darrell Utt on LinkedIn. So please connect with me. I send a ton of updates about the museum out. I'm now on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter, and I think I might even be up on YouTube at some point. If you reach out to me and send me your email, I'd be happy to include you in our weekly updates. We talk about what's going on at the site. I have some pictures. We do some fun facts. I mean, all kinds of cool stuff that I would love to get people included, because we're really trying to build a movement. This isn't just, a Medal of Honor museum in Arlington. I mean, we feel like this is America's museum. This is to celebrate America and Americans. The Medal of Honor recipients, they come from us. They were ordinary people who did extraordinary things, probably on their worst day. But there's lots of lessons that you can pull from these recipients. Like we're talking about earlier with courage. Like, yes, it takes a lot of courage to do things in combat and to face an armed enemy. But it also takes courage to step in when kids are getting bullied, or someone's being treated unfairly, or, if you need help, it takes courage to actually raise your hand and say, please help me. I need some help. I think there's so many different lessons that people can gain from this. That's really going to be powerful. And we want to share that with our fellow Americans.
Very awesome. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I cannot wait to take the family up there in 2025, man.
Yeah, what would you expect to kind of pull out of that, Brian, if we still have a couple of minutes? Or
we got about a minute left here, about a minute.
Okay. What would you kind of like to pull if you would bring your family? Like, what's something that you'd want to share, or you'd want to show them, or be proud of, or what would that look like for you?
I mean, really, first and foremost, it's patriotism, right? Being proud to be an American, patriotism. To me, the idea, of honoring, is remembering those who have served. I mean, we're talking about our nation's most elite and courageous people. And like you say, your foundation, is on a mission to inspire America. Promoting the belief that everyone is born with potential to be extraordinary, and putting this on display for other people to see how other extraordinary people have done things and have operated in our country in the realm of war and combat and freeing other countries, and really setting that bar and that example in the world is truly honorable. So I think some interactive games would be cool, some Q&A from perhaps some real life living Medal of Honor recipients there, maybe some intense 4D videos that are like 10 minutes long that you could screen, and every 2 or 3 hours with a different honoree. I think that would be awesome stuff, to be honest with you.
I think you're going to be happy, Brian. I think we're going to be able to accommodate some of those things. Maybe not all of those things, but some of those things definitely. We are planning on having virtual recipients, the holograms.
Yeah.
So you'll be able to interact, with a Medal of Honor recipient and ask, him questions. And that's something that I tell our staff all the time. I served 26 and a half years in the Army. Most of that was in special operations. That whole entire time, my entire career, I was only ever around one Medal of Honor recipient, and that was Bob Howard, who's an absolute beast, legend, Special Forces, MACV-SOG, Vietnam. He was the only guy I was ever around, and I got just a chance to see. I didn't get a chance to talk to him. I just, he was at one of our functions. But so for our visitors and our guests to be able to interact with a hologram, man, that's going to be so special. I can't wait, man. I just can't wait. I'm so excited.
Love it. Folks, for more information, go to the mohmuseum.org. That is mohmuseum.org. Check them out online. Darrell, thank you so much for joining us today. We sincerely appreciate everything you have done and continue to do in the military and veteran community. Your service, sacrifice, and dedication to our great nation is truly admirable.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate you, man. Appreciate you.